As you just heard, Ontario Premier Doug Ford responded to the blockades, responded to the protests by invoking, and this is a big decision, a state of emergency in the province of Ontario. Ford says he supports the right of people to protest, but he says no one has the right to impede the movement of people or goods.
To those who have chosen to take a city of 1 million people hostage for the past 2 weeks, to those who've attempted to disrupt our way of life by targeting our lifeline for food, fuel, and goods across our borders, to those trying to force a political agenda through disruption, intimidation, and chaos. My message to you is this: your right to make a political statement does not outweigh the right of hundreds of thousands of workers to earn their living. It does not outweigh our right to get food across our borders. Your right to make a political statement does not outweigh the rights of 1 million people in Ottawa to live peacefully, free of harassment and chaos in their own homes.
So, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick is in Toronto. Megan, you listened to that entire Q&A he had with reporters afterwards. Walk me through the terms of this critical declaration in Ontario. What does it mean?
Yeah, so the province announced two things today, really, that they're declaring a state of emergency and that they intend to enact some new orders. And so, Hannah, we're just trying to get some clarification from the Premier's office on when this all takes effect. We understand that these new orders do have to be ratified by Cabinet, and Solicitor General Sylvia Jones said at that news conference that Cabinet would be meeting tomorrow. We've asked the Premier's office why tomorrow and not today in terms of the sense of urgency. So trying to get some clarification on the timeline here. But once they do meet and ratify these orders, the government says what they're doing with these is trying to make it, quote, crystal clear, in the Premier's words, that it's illegal to block or impede the movement of goods, people, or services at critical infrastructure points. And that includes bridges and international border crossings, like the Ambassador Bridge, of course. Also will apply at railway crossings and at airports and at the province's highways and their ports. Also saying they intend to protect the safe movement of ambulances and medical services and public transit and pedestrian walkways. So these orders will be quite wide-ranging. And the province saying those who don't comply with them could face fines of up to $100,000 or 1 year in jail. They also say they are going to provide additional authority to, I think they mean the Ministry of Transportation, to consider revoking personal and commercial driver's licenses should people not comply with these new orders. The Premier saying that all of this, that these measures are additional tools to stop what he calls an illegal occupation of the city of Ottawa. He said it was under siege, and the illegal blockade of the Ambassador Bridge. He also was saying that he has confidence in police to do their job. He says, I'm sure they'll get the job done, when he was asked if these new measures won't work. And as you just heard from Chris Ensing there, the people he's talking to on the ground in Windsor don't seem to care too much about these measures that the province announced today. But Premier Ford did make it clear his message to those protesters was that their message has been heard and it's time for them to go home and to go home peacefully.
He did take a Q&A with reporters afterwards. And what did Ford say, Megan, about criticism that he has not shown enough leadership in trying to end the protest?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard from the opposition leaders at Queen's Park that they say the Premier has been missing in action and not showing enough leadership on these situations. He was asked, why did it take so long to declare a state of emergency or enact these kinds of orders? Ottawa, in his words, under siege for 2 weeks now. So what took so long? And the Premier said he has been engaged on this since it started, that he's been on the phone with the Prime Minister and premiers and the U.S. Ambassador and the mayors of Ottawa and Windsor. But then, so Hannah, he was challenged by a reporter from CTV to explain why he was at his cottage last weekend. photos emerging of him, the Premier, snowmobiling in cottage country on the weekend while major protests were going on here in Toronto and Ottawa. The city of Ottawa had declared a state of emergency. And the Premier did push back, saying he acknowledged, yes, he was at his cottage. And he did go snowmobiling, but that he has been on the phone, quote, 24/7 and around the clock, again, listing the people that he's been talking to. In recent days, he said he takes calls until 1 a.m, that he's getting calls before 6 a.m, and he won't stop until he gets this taken care of. So the Premier on defense there, pushing back against his critics who say he's had tools that he hasn't been using to put an end to these situations in these Ontario cities. But the Premier saying his government has been acting. They've been supporting local police forces with more resources from the Ontario Provincial Police. Yesterday, they went to court to get a court order to block fundraising for some of the protesters. So in his view, the government has been acting and trying to put an end to these, again, illegal occupations, he calls them.
Thank you, Megan. CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick in Toronto.